Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, I'm trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of a presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'm John Henry Harris. We also have Farmer Brown, the MC. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome Black to the garden. Now, we all may not be aware, but there is a community, a subculture in America called the Amish Community. Now, the Amish Community, they're known for wearing their old style clothes, living very simplistic. You know, they do all their own farming. They make their own clothes. They make a lot of their own foods. If they do go shopping, it's for simple things such as sugar or maybe flour. You know, they basically live almost disconnected from modern society. You know, they live as disconnected from modern society as one could in this country. Now, here at B1AG, we're going to take a look at the Amish community and see if their way of living, if there's some things that we can glean from the Amish community to maybe use, take note of, or even adopt moving forward. Because with these mandates going down, you know, jobs being threatened, this doesn't affect them. Inflation, you know, gas prices going up, you know, the cost of utilities increasing. This does not affect the Amish community. You know, they're basically a self-sustained, self-sufficient community. And there are definitely some things that we can pick up, learn, and glean from them moving forward as things continue to change and also as things continue to worsen in this country as it pertains to our economy and just our overall general way of life. So today, B1AG, Blackish, what the community can learn from the Amish. Farmer Brown, what do you think about Blackish?
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. Hope everybody's doing well. My mom gave me some great advice. This was a few years back. She said, son, if you want to do something, you know, people's opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. So if you want to learn something, get advice from those who are doing what you want to do and have what you want to achieve. As a melanated man, I believe that our community, our lineage, our bloodline is greater. We're the root of everything that exists on this planet. Here at B1AG, we continuously have this conversation about getting Black to the garden, Black to the roots, Black to the essence. When we think about the long term, when it comes to information, when it comes to history, there are these little niches within the world that have been able to retain our history better than we've retained it ourselves. And so I think when I think about the Amish and Mennonites, there are some things to glean when we think about now what do sustainable melanated communities look like moving forward. Like you said, during we have these mandates going on. They now have a B1 variant. What is it? Omicron. And so all of these are things that are indelibly going to affect our communities. And so I think, once again, when we think about, we know we want to survive, we know we want to thrive. what are the best models to apply when we talk about this B1 algorithm, this B1 code. And I do think the Amish, there are definitely some things to glean from their community. And so I look forward to deep diving into this conversation.
Now, what does a black, this is a question, and it's like we have to use our imagination a little bit. But what does a black sustainable community look like? What does a black slash Amish community look like? We have an interesting infographic, and this is actually from a real picture that we found about a black Amish in Cleveland, Ohio. Check this picture out, y'all.
So, family, if you look down in the bottom left, and so this video is actually a video that had gone viral a couple of months ago. This was 200 Amish men lifting the barn, moving it. I think this speaks volumes. So if you can leave this up for a second, we're very colorful people. Our culture is very expressive. That's the essence of hip hop. What they were able to do when we talk about this concept of codification, it means when we do this, it's going to work every time. Think about the money saved, something as simple as moving a barn. They didn't have to take the barn apart. They didn't have to rebuild one. The Amish, the Mennonites, they're known for not using electricity or small amounts of electricity. And so, I'm one that believes that humans ourselves, we're batteries. We're full of energy, and the means through which we channel that energy can determine the outcomes. And so it took 200 men to pick this barn up and move it somewhere else. There was money saved. Something else you notice about this picture, all of these gentlemen were dressed in the same attire. Now, here at B1AG, we were talking yesterday when we were talking about doing this podcast that, hey, we're colorful people. When you think about Alkebulan or Africa, even when you think about the Aboriginals here on what you call Turtle Island, we're colorful. And so when we think about this uniform, it isn't necessarily everybody's just wearing the same exact thing, more so than being of one accord, being in the same jersey. Embrace this melanin jersey that we were all endowed with at our birth. You get a lot more things done and it costs you less. The Amish live in an agrarian community, an agrarian economy, meaning their economy is based around agriculture. It thrives in the midst of modern society, not because of its inherited advantages, but rather because it borrows more from that society than meets the eye. Modern society is highly dependent on the division of labor and vast networks of traders on information and communications. The Amish keep all of that within their community. Instead of going outside, we're huge proponents of the black grassroots. We're huge proponents of being able to tell our own narrative versus looking on the screen for somebody to tell us, what our condition is. Like I said, I tend to believe that we can outcompete anybody on this planet. But to be able to outcompete, it means we have to be black to our essence, black to our grassroots of what made us strong, made our ancestors strong in the first place. Once again, at B1AG, everything goes back to food security. Everything goes back to how well can you feed yourself. When we think about the concept of what makes a community resilient, is it your ability to entertain? Are the Amish a resilient community because they can, go protest? I don't think I've ever seen Amish, any sort of news stories about the Amish going to DC asking these people to give them something. Their power is self-contained. There were some articles we wanted to go over as far as how they've survived during this pandemic, however you want to frame it. And because the fact checkers got a hold of it, we don't want to, put that out there. But according to some stories, they were able to gain herd immunity. They're a communal society, meaning some of their rituals that they do, they'll eat from the same bowl, because we know that eating, something as simple as eating, is a very spiritual communal activity. And so what happened was, I think this was about a year and a half ago, in some of the communities, a lot of them ate from the same spoon and caught the Divok, the Ovid K. And so what happened, the concept was they gained herd immunity by eating of the same bowl. And from that, they healed one another. They didn't go to a store to go get, some sort of medicine to heal themselves. They went right back to the garden, doing their work, and they still thrive. Like I said, a lot of us, obviously, many of us don't just live in rural areas, which a lot of the Amish do. A lot of the Mennonites do live in these rural areas. Here at B1AG, another conversation that we continuously have is, okay, we think about brothers like Jay Morrison. There is a huge focus now on melanated people getting black to really, investing in land, not just any land, not just land for housing development, but actual arable land where you can do agriculture. And so I think, once again, the people who have in these minds, we've talked about stories of different families going in on large plots of land. I think there's definitely some lessons that we can learn from the Amish. One of the key points about the Amish, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, bro, is they don't use electricity. When we think about what are the reasons why melanated farmers haven't been able to compete as effectively in what we call North American agriculture, is access to funds, access to capital to be able to get machinery. To get tractors, to get implements, to get different equipment and materials that will help them to produce more. I'm jumping around, but it all ties together. One thing you're not going to find in any of these Amish or Mennonite communities is unemployment. So what they don't spend on tractors, what they don't spend on all of this other equipment, everybody within these close-knit communities has a job, has a role, has a task to play within producing food. Real quick, one of the main crops grown by Amish farmers are wheat, corn, tobacco, hay, soybeans, tomatoes, barley, potatoes, green beans, and feed for their livestock. They don't use any sort of mechanization. They rely on teams of horses. I know some brothers down in the South, like, these are hood cats that ride through the hood on horses. And so it's not like we're that separate from horses. And what they do, they make sure that they feed the community first, and what they don't need for their community, they sell to the outside world that they refer to as the English. Meaning we eat what we need, and then we sell the surplus to the outsiders. I think that's a great concept when we think about this B1 algorithm to incorporate into our communities.
At the end of the day, the Amish, as a community, they are entirely self-sufficient. They have no need to participate in today's unstable fiat monetary system. There's power in that, because as you know, what drives a lot of this economy and makes it unstable is fear of its collapse or fear of calamity. So if they're not dependent or even worried about participating in this fiat monetary system, then it doesn't affect them. If they need something from outside their community, the barter system is still an option for them. That's the oldest form of trade, the barter system. This was started trade. Oh, you got this, I got this, let's trade.
I hear what you're saying, bro. But I want the bag. How much money do Amish make in a year, right? And so an Amish farm of 80 acres, 40 cows, 5 acres of tobacco, vegetables, and fruit can earn gross annual income of $125,000. $125,000. We know we got the elder like Booker T. Watley who figured out how to get $125,000 on 25 acres. And this is melanated innovation. Because of their religion's demand for plainness, meaning, as my grandfather would say, keep it simple, stupid, annual expenses. And I want you to think about this as we're going into more lockdowns because of these new variants. They're releasing variants like mixtapes. The average Amish family with 6 children spends $6,000 to $8,000 a year. And this is food, clothing, and shelter. $6,000 to $8,000 a year. In mainstream society, and I know this to be true, raising one kid is $9,000 on average, but they're able to raise a family of 6 children from 6,000 to 8,000, and this takes care of their food, clothing, and shelter. Is that something to be learned to? Is that a strategy that can be incorporated in our communities where we know we don't necessarily get all of these reparative infusions of capital from the so-called governing bodies, from the powers that want to be? We see that when it comes to a lot of the job loss that's coming over the horizon, it's going to be our communities that are going to be affected. Uh, I think one of the first rules was to be fruitful and multiply. So I'm definitely a proponent of us reproducing ourselves. But in reproducing ourselves, we have to be able to feed one another. Once again, if we see that jobs are being lost on the corporate level, the 9 to 5s, the ones where we clock into, that doesn't mean that there's nothing or a use that we don't have. This is why we really focus on this growing concept, this growth mindset. When you understand the way a food system works, it takes, what did they say? Many hands make light work. That's one of the reasons we promote the healthyblackfood.com. It didn't, good morning, sister. Uh, it isn't just about growing cute gardens. There's something to be gained by learning how to grow food. There's something to be gleaned when you think about agriculture. It is a team sport. It's a game of niches. I might not be the one that can go out here and work with these animals, but I might be great with these plants. I might not be the one that knows how to seed properly, but I got a lot of energy. You got these young cats that got all this energy. Okay, you're going to go out here and harvest. Like I said, what they don't spend on tractors, guess what? This goes into sustainable households. They say that their religion doesn't it doesn't promote for them to watch TV. Peace, brother. It doesn't promote for them to watch TV, but they do occasionally. When we think about the images we see on TV, because once again, we're a very perceptive, very perceptive people, and optics are everything. The screens that we have are always going to show us the worst of ourselves. I dealt with this on my personal path, just promoting Farmer Brown. You would be surprised how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to us wanting to assert our prowess, wanting us to focus on our strengths versus our weakness. There's a very intentional social engineering and marketing that goes into, Black exploitation, Blacks being needy, Black people not being able to do for self, Black people not being able to think. Dr. Boyce touches on this a lot, where when we think about our hip hop music, this is our creation, but it's been used as a weapon against our culture. It's been used as a weapon against our ability to see the greatness in ourselves. And so that's why I think, regardless of the messenger, I think the message that the Amish, through their actions, is a great one for us to not model per se, but to look at as a frame of reference. Now, what does one of these Amish communities look like in one of our melanated communities? Obviously, we're not going to be moving barns around, but are there other structures? We know that high tunnels are very useful when you're wanting to produce year round. And so the same way they were able to get 200 Amish men to get up and move this barn, are we able to get 20 melanated men within any random community across Turtle Island, North America, to go in on? Yes. I've met some of them. I ain't gonna say fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of them don't deal with melanated people, and I think it's because we don't want y'all stress troubles. That's cool. The thing to be gleaned from y'all is what works for y'all. Because at the end of the day, when we talk about building this melanated Black nation, it's going to take us doing for self. It's going to take us being self-sufficient. It's going to take us not being dependent on devices or as dependent. Does this mean like all of the kids, the teenagers are going to just suddenly get off of their devices? I think that's unrealistic. But is there a way that us elders or those of us that, understand what's going on a little more, is there a balance? Okay, you're going to spend X amount of hours on this, but because our community cares, because we know we got this B1 focus, we're going to make sure you spend X amount of hours producing something as well. Not only are we going to say, hey, y'all need to go out and work, we're going to get these distressed properties. Like I said, taking models like the brother Jay Morrison. We're going to invest in these distressed properties. Oh, these plots in the hoods, you think about Detroit, peace to the brother Malik Yakini. We got these hoods where it's all these distressed properties. We're going to incorporate some of these urban agricultural operations. We're going to use some of these distressed properties as food hubs. We're going to use some of these broken down structures. We're going to glean from the knowledge and experience of our carpenters in our communities to build these commissary kitchens where the sisters can come down, the chefs can come in and make pre-prepared meals. But we got to do some very abstract thinking when it comes to how do we address what's going on. And like I said, learning from the Amish, it isn't that we're just out here just as plebeians trying to survive. This is a way to thrive. We bring something to the table that don't exist there. The world is waiting to see what these sleep melanated, this lost tribe, like, okay, we see them waking up, but what are they going to do? Now, are we going to shake the world up by telling them how mad we are? Are we going to shake the world up by telling them, oh, y'all been beating us down? Or are we going to wake the world up by feeding ourselves, learning how to feed ourselves, learning the systems within what it takes to feed ourselves? And like the Amish, we'll sell the surplus to you, some of the best produce you'll get. For those of you that still eat meat, some of the best meat you'll get. Oh, you want feed for your livestock? We raise that too. And employing our own.
What's sad to me is it's become an abstract thought. There's nothing abstract about providing for yourself. There's nothing abstract about growing your own food. There's nothing abstract about building your own. But it's become that. Not for everyone, because we can look to the Amish. That's not their way of life. And there are other communities around the world where that's not their way of life. But we've allowed that to become our way of life here in America because of just being, we've just become a consumer. We've let them trick us into becoming just a consumer when we were the producer base. Although, albeit by force, by hook and crook, we were made the producer base, but that is the way to go. When you make your own, shoot, you make your own, you make your own bed, you make your own table, you make your own food. What can they take from you?
How do the Amish buy land? They don't use credit cards. When we think about this concept of crowdfunding, when we think about the wave behind crypto, we see that the market can be very volatile. And so, I'm nowhere near a financial person, but I understand, okay, when you have group economics, when you practice cooperative economics, many hands make light work. More people going in on anything is going to, you're going to be able to absorb the losses and, gain from the profits. But they don't use credit cards. Instead, they pay for everything with cash or check. There are no Amish bankers, no Amish-owned banks. And so they turn to local banks for help. But saying that to say, we do know there are a few black banks. We do have people like Dr. Boyce Watkins. He tells us all the time, like, when I graduated, I was the only economics PhD in the whole world. And so we do have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the community and the resources we have to leverage what we're good at. We know that, okay, I remember when I was in school, this is the on subject but off, a lot of the cats was getting into hustling. And then, the big thing was, I got a white boy, he got the pounds. Brandon ain't going to get what did Kanye say? Brandon ain't going to get the same outcome as Brad. So saying that to say, trying to approach when it comes to purchasing land, when it comes to getting equipment, we can't look at other people as, hey, well, they did it, so we can do it this way. No, we look at what they did, the work, and then we do our own SWOT analysis. What's our strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? We know as a community, we spend about $2 trillion a year. I think there are probably some people went and spent some money on Black Friday, but we bring in more than enough money to do something as simple as feeding ourselves. Feeding ourselves, this isn't just some charitable, altruistic, pie in the sky concept. This concept is, now, how do you build an economy? It starts with feeding yourself. If you go back to the ancient times, before anybody built a fort, they had to build a secure food production space. Like, where am I going to get the energy to build these forts? Where am I going to get the energy to go to war and conquer new lands or keep colonizers or anybody from coming into my land? So I have to eat first. So once again, there is a strategy behind learning how to produce your own food. Shameless plug, healthyblackfood.com. It starts with the seed. Absolutely, Granny Ghost. It should be our primary way of thinking. Pull that back up, fam. Pull that back up. Granny Goose. It should be our primary way of thinking. It's another form of continual slavery when we continuously depend on colonizers to feed us. Literally, we don't need to eat phones. They're useful. Uh, we don't need entertainment. I mean, it's cool to pass time, but when we think about the times that we're going into, the ability to feed ourselves, I know plenty of individuals that are great producers, livestock producers, vegetable producers. I know plenty of individuals, but I also know how compromised they are because, okay, I'm in a community where I'm surrounded by others that any given moment they're codified on knowing the value of this land and what I do, but do my own. What do they say? His own receive them not, right? And so how do we as a community start placing value on our black farmers, melanated farmers and producers? Not only is just this romanticized concept, but as, hey, this is a staple of our community. This represents strength in our community. When we talk about building this nation, every structure has a strong foundation that can withstand the winds, that can withstand the water, that can withstand the elements. This foundation is food production. As my grandfather says, keep it simple, stupid. When you learn how to feed yourself, not just, oh, I'm smart enough to go to the store and use a card or use some cash to buy food, but no, producing it from seed. There lies power. There is real power. When we think of power, we grew up thinking about swords and guns and cannons and missiles. There's a power in feeding yourselves. Right now, guess who's not subject to mandates and getting fired from their jobs? Nobody in the Amish and Mennonite community. Guess who can still eat regardless of if the store said, well, we don't want you in here if you don't have identification? Guess who home, what do we talk about? One of the beauties of the black business school. They don't have this concept of the public schools contaminating their kids' thoughts. They teach their own, that you're going to get out here and produce. We don't have to, walk around in black and white clothing or dull looking clothing. The same way they produce their clothes, I keep thinking about Kanye and what he's got going on. We can produce this colorful, uniform, melanated brand of clothing, apparel from something like hemp. We know that hemp is hemp is a very valuable regenerative crop that we see now. A lot of the legal restrictions have been lifted. How do we as a melanated community seize upon it? Yeah, there's value in hemp oil, but what about the fiber? Are we mastering? Are we working with the carpenters? Are we working with the construction workers and builders to figure out how to incorporate hempcrete? Bricks made out of hemp. Are we looking at, okay, what if we have a groundswell of our people that are getting kicked out of these cities, that are being gentrified, that are basically being forced to go in the wilderness? Do we have a brain trust of melanated family who's thinking beforehand, like, okay, maybe we make these hempcrete villages, maybe we make these hemp fiber villages, these shipping container villages. We have the power, family. The land, there are 1.9 billion acres in North America alone. 75% of us only live on 3% of the land. So what that represents to me is there's nothing but air and opportunity, but it starts with the seed. How do we get in? Good question. And so once again here at B1AG, in the spirit of the elder Nellie Fuller, I'm still learning. But Turtle Island, when you look at it, has the shape of a turtle. For Aboriginal people, that Taino copper color Aboriginal people, this is what this land was called. Here at B1AG, we try to keep our conversation around food security for melanated peoples. Unfortunately, one of the things that divide us, there's a large contingency of us that have tapped into our ancestral roots, and we understand, okay, yeah, maybe all of my ancestors didn't come from over the ocean during the slave trade. And so those ancestors would have classified this land as Turtle Island. Am I saying that the slave trade never existed? That's not what I'm saying. Am I saying that everything didn't come from Africa? There was also a thing called Pangaea. This was when all land masses were together. I tend to believe from a geological standpoint, wherever there was an equator and long exposure to the sun, you have melanated people. And this is across all continents. But to answer your question, Turtle Island was basically the shape of what we call North America. As to not divide us more, I acknowledge that. I acknowledge my Blackfoot. I acknowledge my Cherokee. I acknowledge my Washita lineage. But I also know that, okay, upon acknowledging these things, that creates a whole layer of chaos when it comes to how do we get 200 men to lift this barn? How do we get a critical mass of us to agree to work on feeding ourselves? And then once we fed ourselves, then we can sit down and hash this out. Now, what is your history? Where did you come from? What form of the Most High do you ascribe to? What form of religion? Because once again, there's this power in divide and conquer. And, unfortunately, a lot of us, we're taking our eye off of this bigger ball of feeding ourselves, of building this nation that we speak of. And I'm not going to say petty, because petty's not the word I want to say, but these arbitrary things that could be hashed out over a meal. But we're not going to have that meal until we prepare it. Because trying to have this conversation at somebody else's table, it ain't going to happen. Thank you for asking that. I saw the other day somebody said, "Man, you sound real Christian. You keep going back and forth from North America to Turtle Island." And once again, that's very unfortunate. One of the scientists behind B1AG, and we'll just be very transparent, Hen and I, we really sat down trying to figure out, like, man, this is very important for us, considering what's going on. What is the most common thing that all of us have in common? We know that all of us have an appetite. All of us need to eat, whether you're into fasting, whether you're vegan, whether you're plant-based, whether you still eat meat, whatever it is, we all need to eat. And whatever it is we're eating, I think the majority of us will rather eat something that's natural than lab-grown. I know from a professional standpoint, the lab-grown food is coming. As recent as 2017, I remember one of the conferences I went to, and the U.S., some of the people from the USDA, they were touting, "Hey, yeah, we're able to grow meat in a petri dish now." Right. So we know that lab-grown meat is coming. And so when we think about what are some codified, concise, very specific conversations to have, productive conversations to have, we understand food production, because economies that change over time. There was a time that there was no such thing as a dollar, no such thing as Bitcoin, no gold at one point in time wasn't valuable until somebody said, "Hey, this shiny, malleable metal is valuable." Before then, it was literally, when we talk about getting black to the basics, black to our essence, it was, "Hey, you have 2 apples, I have 2 oranges. I'll give you one of my oranges if you give me one of these apples." And we had this tangible trade. We're in a world where, okay, tangibles aren't that, we were talking about the other day about this virtual reality where people are buying land in the metaverse. And so we have people spending real resources on virtual properties. And so it's our thing, okay, how do we get to a real conversation? How do we try to eliminate the things that are dividing us? Soylent Green is people. That's a whole other rabbit hole to go into. So once again, there's a contingency of a large amount of us that never even heard of Soylent Green, never even saw the prophetic value in that movie, Soylent Green. So once again, how do we frame this conversation and have the conversation without, going into, well, you said this differently than I would say it. You wear this differently than I would wear it. You pray to this or acknowledge this or meditate this differently than I would. We all have to eat. And when we can feed ourselves, there's no power like sitting around this good wooden table that was grown in this melanated agroforestry operation with food on it that was grown from melanated producers. And we have our melanated conversation. What does Sister Vicky Diller say? Mind your own black business. So this is what we're in the business of doing at B1AG.
Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Join the conversation. Let's grow this conversation. This is a conversation that we need to be having with our peoples across this nation and across this planet. How to grow our own food, how to become more self-sustainable. It's becoming more and more important. It's more important now than ever. this economy, this everything, this whole way of life that we're on, this trajectory is falling apart. It is crumbling before our eyes. It really is. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to wait for it to crumble on our head? You're going to wait for these boulders to come crashing down on our head? Or are we going to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we're out of harm's way? And one of the main ways we can stay out of harm's way is to become more self-sustainable, growing our own food, getting back to making our own clothes, getting back to building our own communities. Don't worry about getting a job. My granddaddy always told me, he's like, hey, you can either go get a job or get to work. Because there's always work to do. Always work to do. Whether you have a job or not, there's always work to do. You can't get no realer than that, no plainer than that. Now, at the end of the day, the key word that we need to become more familiar with, we need to really incorporate in our life is sustainability. The ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level, avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance. We need to incorporate more sustainability in our lives because the platform that our current way of living is based upon is not sustainable. And that's why it's crumbling. It's not sustainable. You know, us relying on paying other people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves is not sustainable. Eating out every night is not sustainable. Depending on someone else to feed us is not sustainable. Because even the medium, even the medium of trade, these dollars, they're losing their value. That's why they're talking about this inflation on the news. When they say inflation, that means it's going to take more of these dollars to buy whatever you're trying to buy, which means that dollar is less valuable. Work is never, there is no inflation on work. Work is always valuable.
Granny Goose said it. We create our own court. We create our own proverbial agroforestry operation and put the wood on our court. And it's, you know, and the thing is, this isn't anything new. All this is us tapping back into what was already done, what we've been distracted from. It was our dependence. Man, I don't want to talk your ear off because we could go forever. It was when somebody convinced us that it's more valuable to have this paper in my hand than this land under my feet. That's when the bondage started. Because when you were able to feed yourself, you know, as we think about this holiday we call Thanksgiving that just passed, once we taught you how to grow everything, they ran off on the plug. And this is why it's unsustainable. You know, our elders, our ancestors were smart enough. I ain't going to give you everything, but I'm going to teach you how to feed yourself because we're that type of people. You know, we don't go around the world looking to destroy. And so, you know, after this couple hundred years, you know, we've been here for hundreds of thousands, if not millions. After a couple hundred years, we see, okay, yeah, what y'all got going on is unsustainable. So let us reclaim our position as the stewards of the land. Let the mothers and fathers of civilization reallocate how this game goes. And it goes back to what Grand Goose said. It's creating our own court, creating our own game. The Amish, once again, are an example of this within a nation. I've never heard the Amish going on a Amish nation. They don't do that. They just do the business of what a nation does. On code, the essence of code. Pull that image up with them moving that barn.
Many hands make light work. You've heard us say this on this platform a lot. And this is a perfect example of many hands making light work. Many hands make light work. They're picking up a building, y'all, because the foundation of their people is the people. They focus on the foundation of their way of life is their people. So anything they need, if they can move a mountain, if they need to move a mountain, they're going to move that mountain together. Surely we can come together as a people, loving ourselves and putting ourselves as the foundation of a way of life to at least feed ourselves. Surely we can do that. Many hands make light work. I ain't gonna lie, this picture kind of freaked me out when I saw it. But it's a wonderful thing. Not saying we need to be Amish, but there are things that the things we're talking about, learning and gleaning from the Amish community, these are the foundational steps that we had in the beginning in our own communities. We need to reclaim that. We're not even borrowing from them. We're just going back to what we used to do. They never stopped. No matter what goes on in society, they are okay. Because they're not dependent on this society. We are. And that's an issue. That is an issue. We're going to have to change our way of thinking. These little creature comforts that we've gotten so comfortable with and accustomed to, we have to let some of this stuff go. And it's not painful. Just let it go. Get black to the garden, black to the essence, getting black to what really is important. And there ain't nothing more important than this grand land and this nature and this life that was bestowed upon us. There's nothing more important than that. You can keep that metaverse. Creator gave us a whole universe. Let's take care of that. Let's make the best use of that.
Be faithful over a few things, I will make you the ruler of many. Be faithful over your garden, and then you're ready to take on this farm.
So y'all, Blackish, what the community can learn from the Amish. This is a question we pose. But we as a community, even though we look at with this question we're posing, look at the Amish, all we need to do is look at our own history. Let's go back to what started us. And it's the same principles. Self-sustainability, being self-sufficient, taking care of your own, doing for self, living with the land, living with the natural cycles of life, ain't cutting no corners. And there ain't no thinking you can do it better than what God created. We can't do no better. We're man. Everything we do is messed up. And if it ain't messed up now, it's gonna mess up later, sooner or later. Because we're flawed. Can't help it. We're man. We're mankind. Men and women. We're all flawed. Accept it. But thank goodness, thank God, He's laid out perfect examples for us. Let's lean on that. So, Farmer Brown, It's been I believe it's a good conversation today. Definitely need to get back to the garden, healthyblackfood.com. Sign up, learn how to grow your own food. This is just one of the foundational steps in becoming self-sufficient. Learn how to grow your own food. Like, share, and subscribe. We need to grow this platform, y'all. We need to get more subscribers to Daily Bread, B1AG Daily Bread podcast on YouTube. We need more subscribers so we can reach more people, so we can get this word out. Like, share, and subscribe. We're also on the Black Boss channel. Like, share, and subscribe. We have to grow this conversation. We have to. We're not just out here talking about content creators. This is a trumpet we're blowing, y'all. We're blowing a trumpet. Can you feel what I'm saying? We're blowing a trumpet. I'm not doing this for like, even though I say like, share, and subscribe, this is not what I'm doing it for. I'm blowing a trumpet, y'all. There are these changes that are happening in our life right now. These are monumental changes, big changes. It's getting strange out here, and they're being open about it. There are fundamental things that we need to get back to keep from having these boulders come crashing down on our head. Stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And the biggest part of staying ready, we have to mobilize as a community, mobilize as a people, because many hands make light work. It's a daunting task, but the more critical mass of people we have together, working together, it gets that much easier. Many hands make light work. And at the end of the day, Farmer Brown, if the people really, 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 really want to know something, what do they need to do, bro?
If you really want to know something, remember, he who feeds you leads you. And so in this time of tribulation, if you really want to know something, let's learn how to grow something.
I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody to tell somebody to tell somebody. B1AG, Daily Bread Podcast. John Henry Harris, Farmer Brown MC. We blowing trumpets, y'all. We're trying to get you ready. We're trying to get ready ourselves. We're trying to get ready ourselves. It's Sunday. Let's proceed through this day with love. Tell somebody you love them, you hug them. Hey, I know these holidays just passed. I just want to give a shout out to for all the people who their closest family members have transitioned on. Look, my mom and my father and my grandparent, they're all gone. So this is a hard time of year for me. My brother lives outside of the country. My only brother. I have one brother. He lives outside of the country.
If you're really a king, I'll be your brother.
Man, you know you my brother, bro.
That's
why I love this guy, man. I've been working with Farmer Brown. Me and Ike Brown, Trevor. We've been working together, knowing each other for over 25 years. Through thick and thin, it's been my brother. And I'm thankful for him. Be thankful for the people that are in your life. And let's get ready, y'all. So we don't have to, and let's stay ready so we don't have to get ready. It's B1AG, Daily Bread Podcast. John Henry Harris. We have Farmer Brown MC. Again, let's proceed through the rest of this week, beginning of this week, through the rest of this week in love. And let's don't let us forget the ways of the ant. Let's get prepared. Let's stay prepared. And once we're prepared, let's keep preparing to be prepared. Have a wonderful day. We love you, and we'll see you soon. Peace.